You sick of me yet? This one is not exactly my presentation, but I'm giving it on behalf of Andrei Robichevsky from ISOC. I believe that he presented in the past about the Routing Resilience Manifesto, and this is an update on where that is right now and what's going on. One of the things you'll see, actually I should go back to the first, we changed the name because some folks thought that manifesto sounded a little too sketchy. So we came up with a cute acronym, and so now it's called MANNERS. The idea here is getting a collective focus on a set of things that we all sort of agree are the right things to do to improve routing security. This is kind of hearkening back to what I had said before about there's a bunch of things that we can do before RPKI is ready that will help to improve routing security in meaningful ways. These are the high points. You can certainly look at this in more detail on the slides, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time reading bullets to you. The main idea here is that we want to try and get to a critical mass of providers who agree that these are the right things to do, and that they agree to, if they're not already implementing them in their network, that they will implement them, and also continue having an open set of discussions around ways that we can continue to improve things, new things that we all need to do collectively in order to improve routing security and general security on the internet. But the high points here are in terms of BGP filtering, anti-spoofing, and collaboration and coordination, so having right contact information available, things like that. Mostly what we're talking about here is the things that we care about in terms of what there are references already in the document that point out the hows so that there is another place for folks to go. This wasn't meant to be a prescriptive document. There's still certainly openings for, if people have good resources that we're not pointing to, we certainly would welcome that feedback. These are the general principles that we're talking about, and you can see here that this is pretty high level in terms of what we think is important here. This is in a little lower level thing. What we're talking about is actually trying to avoid spoofing, trying to avoid propagating incorrect routing information in whatever form that might take. And that is purposely not prescribing either RPKI or other solutions. And trying to improve the communication on this kind of thing so that we can coordinate better. The idea is if we can come up with a set of things that are ways to meaningfully improve what we're doing to secure the internet, as a community, it continues to perpetuate the idea that we're good at self-governance and fixing problems on our own rather than having something blow up in such a way that we end up with a bunch of regulators stepping in to help. These are some more specific information about the actions that we're actually agreeing to here. The idea here is that you want to have a group of providers that are going to agree that either they will do these actions or they're already doing them. And so this goes through and talks about the individual actions in a little more detail. And again, you can read these as you see fit. And then the main thing really here is to actually hit the website. The current, what we believe to be the final draft form of the document is out there. We're basically ready to go public with this, and so if there are things that people see that are glaringly wrong, please give us feedback as soon as possible. It's still at routingmanifesto.org. I'm not certain whether they're going to be changing that domain eventually, but this is the document, and you can look at it in as much detail as you want. Here's sort of where we are. We've got a draft document. We've, since Andre's last discussion and post to a bunch of different mailing lists, we've had a lot of internal discussion. We've gotten lots of feedback from folks who've looked at this and said, you're doing this wrong, or these words don't make sense, or whatever. And we've incorporated a lot of that feedback. We think we've got something that's pretty close, and we're pretty happy with it. We're getting ready for sort of what would be the real launch. So that's kind of where we are. We are looking for participants. This covers what we actually mean by participating. The idea is that you end up with something kind of similar to what we did for things like World v6 launch, where you have a group of companies that say we commit to participate in this. The difference here is that because there are different categories of things involved here. Not everyone's going to do everything right away or even agree that everything is the right thing to do. There's going to be some check boxes. So you can say, for example, my company can do X and Y, but not Z, and we can still accommodate that. So that was the idea in order to make this as flexible as possible. So there's your check boxes. You can kind of choose out what makes the most sense for you, but this was just intended to try and raise the visibility on this, make sure people are looking at this and seeing if it's something they can participate in, because we think the real benefit of this is getting enough participants so that there's added pressure to get more and more folks involved. This is absolutely one of these things that the main benefit is when more and more people are doing it consistently, especially when it comes to things like BGP filtering and anti-spoofing. And so getting more and more participants who are then in turn applying pressure to the folks that are under their sphere of influence, their upstreams or their downstream customers, to ensure that this gets deployed more widely. I think it's sort of the right kind of method to improve the propagation of these sorts of things. So there's the website again. Please have a look and see what you think. There are a number of different folks who have been involved in this. Myself, Jared Mock, Tony Tauber. So if you find us in the hallways, please definitely give us a piece of your mind as you feel appropriate. But I think that's it. Yeah. So short and sweet. Questions?
Thanks, Wes. Any questions?
All right.
All right. Thank you. Our next contestant is, oh, hang on a second, there's a question back there, Tony.
No? Okay. Just an amplification, yes. We're not looking just for feedback, but to see if your organization, company, or what have you, your operation can become an endorser, signatory, because the idea is to get more momentum. More people who say, yes, we are also doing this, and we think this is the right way to do things. So that's it.
And Greg Hankins, that's the wrong deck. Much better. So this is Jeff Osborne, the president of ISC, with an extremely long slide deck asking the question, how the hell should we fund open source?
He's lying about the card deck. It's one slide, and it disappeared. It's kind of hard to keep it up. More memory on that machine would help. I'm going to stick with the theory of making up time is good, too. If I can keep this to 5 minutes like the leader there, we'll be back on schedule, which I assume is a good thing. I basically wanted to spend some time and talk about open source, which is sort of like something that's always there and we don't think about that much unless it isn't working. Open source got hit with the spotlight back in the spring when the Heartbleed vulnerability sort of got into the popular media, and I'm sure all of us had a lot of time answering questions from ill-informed but well-meaning family members and friends about what was this and why did people make the bad bug and why are bad people bad and things like that, rather than a bunch of well-informed but underfunded people had a vulnerability get exposed. And so you're left wondering how come a half dozen guys who didn't get $2,000 a year in funding could possibly stay on top of a complex piece of code like OpenSSL and something as widely distributed as that, and how come things like this, one, don't happen more often, and two, why can't we prevent them with just the application of money and a little help? So again, how are we going to pay for open source software? The Bourne shell vulnerability that we're all playing with now, shell shock or bash or whatever, is just another example of here's an open source thing that we're all using and people aren't really paying for in the normal sense, and yet we're all exposed to it. So I think it's a germane question, and I have nothing in the way of proposals or answers. I'm just trying to raise the question in the 3 minutes and 45 seconds I have left. My name's Jeff Osborne. I'm president of ISC. ISC's been around for over 20 years providing open source software that works for the betterment of the internet. Our charter and our mission statement are literally write software and provide services that make the internet better. So there's no profit motive, there's no set of shareholders to please, which sounds nice until you try to figure out what the hell are we supposed to do and how are we going to pay the people who do it. I've been in the commercial internet business I was just adding this up, it's terrifying, over 3 decades. Doing X25 pads in 1983 really makes it over 3 decades. But nonprofit stuff is hard. So I've been doing this for a year and trying to figure out how the hell you make it work. Hartlead pointed out the funding difficulties, and in trying to help those guys, I think we just found it was more and more of a rat hole the farther you looked. How do you pay for this stuff? So a couple of decades ago, Red Hat was sort of the first commercial organized group to try to figure out how we pay for things, and they provided, this is the Reader's condensed version, support services for a fee. And that's worked pretty well for them, and that's a fine thing, but it makes it seem like this is an easy problem to fix. The problem, I think, is if you take organizations like that and sort of, plot them, and you take the x-axis and take the amount of money these people have and then sort in descending order by how much money everybody has, you get this asymptotic drop-off and this big, long, skinny tail. And almost everybody lives in a place with no money and no clue how to get it and underfunded, and that's not optimal. So somehow something has to happen that's better. And again, I'm raising the question. I really don't have an answer. When I started talking about this yesterday, people started saying the freemium model makes a whole lot of sense. You have a free offering everybody gets, and for a little more money you get a better one. And that's got its problems too. I think it's frankly ethically inexcusable to have the shitty software go to everybody and you get the good stuff if you paid up. And that's not why I got involved in the internet. That's not why I run a nonprofit. That's not why I wake up in the morning. So, no. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's a lonely fight some days. And in full disclosure, I inherited some legacy subscription branch things that we're actively in the process of closing out because it's not right. It's not the right thing. The cooperative fundraising is another pleasant thought. And when I checked out of the hotel an hour ago, I got the 10 T-shirts we'd cooperatively bought in a box, so I may throw them in the audience, where NLNet Labs does a version of a DNS product, and we have a DNS product you may have heard of called Bind. And so I decided, I went to the sales and marketing guys and I said, we're going to treat any money that comes into either of these organizations as you having done a good job. And I'd like to make that a bigger umbrella, because as an open source organization, the problem isn't fund me, the problem is fund open source. We have a 3 orders of magnitude problem. I argue I've got at least 250,000 users of Bind, and I have 120 who pay for it. So that's 3 orders of magnitude, and you're still only halfway to solving the problem. So obviously, the people who are not paying for open source are a much bigger field than the ones paying, not paying enough. Or, God forbid, I try competing against some really well-meaning other people. So that's another thought. The last thought we came up with was my favorite, but the council didn't like it. Gun running and extortion have run really well for ISIS. I thought we could be an open source behemoth in about a month if we pulled it off, but council won't let me do it yet. Anyway, we're back on schedule now. Thank you very much for your time. And it really isn't a question, but if you have any thoughts or inputs, I'm Jeff@isc.org, and I'd love to hear how the hell we're going to pay for this. Thank you.